You might not believe it now, but most men are just one insight away from understanding why some women chase after them, while others don't even notice their existence. And the most curious thing? It has nothing to do with beauty, money, or being nice. In fact, being too nice is usually the first poison. The science is clear. The human brain desires what activates tension, curiosity, and unpredictability, not what is readily available. It's hard to admit, but it's true. The problem is that nobody taught you this. From a young age, they repeated that you should please, show interest, prove your worth, and all of that only made you more invisible. Meanwhile, men who understand the right triggers achieve something that seems unfair. Women start chasing after them without even realizing it. It's not magic, it's not manipulation, it's pure psychology. Today, you're going to discover exactly what these 9 triggers are, and most importantly, how to apply them ethically, elegantly, and strategically. Some of these triggers are so powerful that once you learn them, you'll realize they've been used against you before. And perhaps it's in this recognition that your turning point will finally begin, ready to learn what no one has ever explained to you, but which changes everything. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He always believed that female desire began with touch, as if the body were the first invitation and not the last chapter of the story. But if he observed calmly, that same calmness that Machiavelli would use when reading a room, he would realize that her desire begins long before that, born in silence, in the way her imagination creates worlds even before he takes a step. A woman desires like someone lighting a fire under ice, outwardly subtlety, inwardly a disciplined fire guided by reality and not by romantic ideals. It is an invisible dance in which absence speaks more than presence, and where the appearance of virtue, when natural, weighs more than any exaggerated display. He doesn't understand that, for her, time is the fire that shapes, not haste. And that's precisely where many get lost. They confuse impulse with connection. A man who lives with constant adaptability realizes that female desire is political, a politics based on real human nature and not a predictable fairy tale. And when he learns this, everything silently changes, even before he notices that she was already watching him. If he knew how she observes before desiring, perhaps he would change his way of walking through the world. Because a woman, unlike a man, first imagines, then feels. First analyzes, then surrenders. She reads intention like one reads military strategies. She examines whether that man seems to have his own loyal armies. Not literally, of course, but emotionally. She wants to see if he conducts himself with the calculated use of force, that quiet firmness that stifles any doubt before it arises. And the more discreet he is, the more space she has to create internal narratives. That's how small details, a gesture, a pause, a decision made without haste, become the seed of desire. For her, the man who doesn't try too hard to impress already demonstrates virtù and fortuna without needing to mention them. And while he believes nothing is happening, she records every nuance, every silence, every posture. Desire then begins before the body. It begins in the imagination, and it is in this invisible dimension that the trap lies for those who insist on accelerating the process. The man who tries to rush the touch doesn't understand that for her, touch only makes sense when the mind has already constructed an entire universe. She doesn't desire the impact, she desires the echo, not the act, but the possibility. It's as if her mind is testing his stability. Does he need to prove something, or is he already self-sufficient? Because for her, true masculine power is to remain whole, present, but never pressuring. Better to be feared than loved. Perhaps not literally, but symbolically, yes. She desires the man whose presence commands respect effortlessly and whose absence creates imagination. And when he begins to understand this, something opens up. The fire beneath the ice stirs. She begins to feel, but only begins. Because what comes next is even more silent, subtle, and strategic, almost like the awakening of a curiosity she herself doesn't admit aloud. A woman's curiosity doesn't strike like lightning. It arises like a gentle breeze that almost no one notices. It's that instant when she feels something different in his presence, without understanding exactly what it is. It's not the man who shows off, not the boisterous seducer. It's the man who acts with a policy guided by reality, who doesn't try to appear as something he simply is. The woman perceives this energy even when he's not looking, because her mind works like a silent radar, capturing details he doesn't even notice, the rhythm of his voice, the calmness in his gestures, the firm posture that demonstrates a calculated use of force without aggression. And it's curious how, precisely in the absence of explicit intention, his presence becomes more striking. Machiavelli would say that the appearance of virtue matters more than the effort to prove it, and she feels this in her skin. Curiosity awakens when she thinks, why is he different? And that small question mark, when planted, becomes a powerful seed that grows on its own. At this stage, her mind begins to construct a possibility, not yet a desire, but a potential. Like someone looking at a map before deciding on a route, she examines nuances. The way he holds a glass, his posture when silent, even the way he listens. She doesn't admit it, but she begins to observe him as if evaluating whether he makes decisions based on real human nature or is just trying to please. Small gestures that go unnoticed by the average man are registered in her as clues. His calmness, his constant adaptability, the absence of desperation, his confidence without arrogance. All this causes unconscious details to become emotional markers. For many men, they are just habits. For a woman, they are codes. And the most interesting thing, she observes more in the moments when he doesn't try. It is in non-effort that she sees power. A wise man understands that curiosity cannot be forced. It must be allowed. He creates space with his balanced presence, like a leader with his own loyal armies. He doesn't need to make noise to be noticed. He knows that the end justifies the means only when the means are silent and strategic. Therefore, he doesn't invade, doesn't rush, doesn't try to accelerate what is still germinating. He appears as someone who knows his worth and doesn't compromise his position for approval. This awakens in her the feeling of, I need to understand more about him, which is the most powerful trigger in the initial phase. If you want to apply this to real life, just remember, female curiosity grows in emptiness, not saturation. A simple example. Instead of trying to dominate the conversation, pause, look into her eyes, and let your breath speak. Silence is an ally. And in that interval, something begins to be born that goes far beyond curiosity. Something that slowly transforms into interest. Interest begins when she realizes he remains on her mind even when he's not around. It's that curious moment when she tries not to think, but the thought returns as an involuntary reflex. His presence begins to compete with daily distractions, and this competition, without her noticing, he easily wins. She starts looking for signs, not consciously, but through ancient instincts, almost as if she were assessing the appearance of virtue, the silent firmness that Machiavelli said was stronger than any discourse. She tries to observe whether he acts with politics guided by reality, or if he is just another one who gets lost trying to please. And the more natural he is, the more the interest grows. Small things, like the timbre of his voice or the way he holds his own space, become emotional markers. That's how her body begins to follow her mind. Discrete heartbeats, changing breathing, a slight adjustment in her gaze. When interest awakens, the female body reveals what the mind tries to hide. She touches her hair unconsciously, bites her lip when he speaks, adjusts her clothes almost automatically. It's as if ancestral instinct takes the wheel, making it clear that something within her has already recognized his worth. And paradoxically, the less he tries, the stronger she feels it, because the lucid man acts like someone who has his own loyal armies. He doesn't beg for attention, doesn't succumb to despair, doesn't try to prove he deserves it. He simply exists, with virtu and fortuna guiding his gestures, constant adaptability in his gaze, and decisions based on real human nature. The common man, in that impulse to accelerate the connection, makes the fatal mistake. He tries to transform interest into urgency before its time. And she feels this as a breaking of the mystery. The interest doesn't die, but it loses intensity. A lucid man knows that at this stage, rhythm is everything. Interest is like music. If you try to speed it up, you ruin the sound. That's why he remains calm, doesn't change his behavior to impress, doesn't try to buy admiration. He understands that the end justifies the means only when the means respect her internal timing. Instead of rushing, he leads. Instead of pressuring, he allows. And it is precisely this posture that makes her start creating situations to be near him. A seemingly casual conversation, an accidental approach, a casual comment just to see his reaction. She wants to test if what she feels is real or just the product of initial curiosity. And the more he remains firm and centered, the more her interest grows. What she doesn't know, however, is that interest is only the beginning of a deeper psychological game, the official entry of imagination. When imagination takes over, the game changes completely, and it changes in his favor if he knows how to maintain his composure. Mental desire is the territory where a woman constructs scenes that never existed, dialogues that never happened, moments she would like to live. And curiously, all this intensifies not in his presence, but in his absence. It's like Machiavelli said about the appearance of virtue. She imagines what he represents, not necessarily what he showed. A scent in the air, a song playing for no reason, a specific time of day, everything begins to remind her of him, as if her mind were stitching together memories that haven't yet happened. It is at this point that his absence becomes the most fertile ground for the female imagination. He is not there, and precisely for that reason, she creates versions of him more interesting than reality would allow. She begins to idealize, and idealization is a type of power that few men understand. The female mind, guided by centuries of intuition and emotional reading, constructs an almost mythical man, more centered, firmer, more secure than perhaps he really is. But that's how politics guided by her emotional reality works. She creates what she wants to see. And if he maintains his calm, his silent presence, the calculated use of force in his actions, this fantasy is strengthened. Here, he doesn't need to do more, just not break the spell by trying to accelerate the process. A practical example: if he always responds with despair, he destroys the fantasy. If he responds with naturalness and balance, he feeds it effortlessly. It is at this stage that she begins to wonder, Why does he affect me so much? A question that in itself already sets desire in motion. The more she fantasizes, the more her mind becomes the stage where desire silently grows. And the most fascinating thing? Everything is born from absence, not presence. He may be working, studying, living his own life, and every minute he's not there becomes fuel for her imagination. That's how, slowly, she begins to miss him without admitting it. The man who understands true human nature knows this. Emptiness is strategic, pause is a tool, absence is virtue and fortune combined. He doesn't need to hide, he just needs to avoid rushing things. And while he maintains this centered posture, she builds, within her own mind, versions of a possible future. It is this silent process that opens the portal to the next level. Because fantasizing without a body, sooner or later, awakens the impulse. And that's where temptation begins to be born. Temptation arises when the boundary between imagination and body begins to dissolve. Thought, once secure, gains a certain temperature, and this change creates an internal conflict. The mind tries to maintain control, but the body is already responding to what it has imagined. That's when the clearest signs appear: involuntary shivers, gazes that linger a second longer, breathing that loses its discipline. She feels the wall between reason and impulse thinning, almost transparent. And despite trying to resist, something inside her is pulled, as if a silent force were inviting her to cross a line that only she can see. This is where the impatient man fails miserably. He tries to accelerate what is still maturing. As Machiavelli said, the calculated use of force is what defines success, and at this stage, using too much force destroys the enchantment. Temptation is a dance, not a race. The intensity grows because she feels for the first time that what she imagined now has a reflection in her body. The mental desire creates an internal vibration that she cannot name, but recognizes. The prolonged gaze is not conscious, it is instinctive. Her body leans towards him even when she tries to maintain her posture. It is a divided consciousness. One part wants to maintain logic, the other wants to experience what only existed in the realm of fantasy. As a mentor, I would say that this is the moment when a man must practice constant adaptability, adjusting to her rhythm, not his own. Forcing it here is to kill the connection. For example, if she takes a step forward, you don't take two. You maintain presence, breathe deeply, and let your own energy do the work. That is how the mystery solidifies. The temptation is not the act, it is the intensity that precedes the act. Temptation is the perfect prelude, precisely because it offers no guarantees. It feels, desires, imagines, retreats, advances, all at the same time. It is sweet chaos, and the lucid man understands that this confusion doesn't need to be resolved. It needs to be honored. He maintains his balance, like someone who keeps his own loyal armies under control, without showing despair, without losing the appearance of virtue. This posture creates even more tension because it shows that he masters himself, not the moment. The common man tries to transform this instant into haste. The wise man transforms it into presence. This firm, almost imperturbable presence gives it the feeling that it is safe to feel more. And it is precisely this feeling more that opens the door to the next phase, when temptation ceases to be just fire and becomes hunger. When desire matures enough for her to feel it clearly, something even more fascinating emerges: control. Not that rigid, cold, distant control, but an artistic, almost choreographic control. The woman transforms desire into a tool and, like a natural strategist, begins to test reality to understand the impact it causes. Machiavelli would call this politics guided by reality, because she observes his behavior and adjusts her own with silent precision. She provokes with a look, retreats with subtlety, advances with a seemingly innocent phrase. None of this is out of malice. It's simply the feminine dance to discover whether he maintains the calculated use of inner strength or crumbles at the first stimulus. She wants to feel stability, not empty intensity. And each of her movements is a veiled invitation for him to prove that he doesn't lose himself. Tests arise naturally. She wants to see if he can withstand it, if he remains centered, if he has his own loyal inner forces. In other words, if he is emotionally governed by his own axis and not by the need for approval. The average man gives everything at once, as if fear and anxiety were good advisors. He gives in too quickly, tries to accelerate desire, tries to secure something that is still being built, and, ironically, this causes her to lose respect. The lucid man, however, understands that this is the moment to apply virtù and fortuna, firmness and timing. He doesn't rush, he isn't impressed, he doesn't change his rhythm. He observes, breathes, returns the energy in the same tone, and this in itself says much more than any rehearsed phrase. He becomes a predictable presence in character, but unpredictable in action. And that is what fascinates the female mind. Here, forces collide, the feminine testing and the masculine proving. It's not a war, it's a mutual recognition. She wants to know how much he can endure before losing his balance. He wants to know if she respects invisible boundaries. If you want to apply this to everyday life, remember, when she makes a move, to see your reaction. Don't respond intensely, respond consistently. If she retreats, you don't chase after her, you maintain emotional territory. If she provokes you, you don't explode, you smile, breathe, and remain whole. Machiavelli would say that avoiding being hated is prudence, but here, avoiding being predictable is power. And when she realizes he won't bend, something inside her changes. Desire ceases to be a game and begins to transform into a need. At this point, desire ceases to be delicate. It takes on weight, scent, direction. Imagination is no longer enough. She wants to feel, touch, experience what until then only existed as a possibility. The curiosity that was once gentle now becomes an emotional urgency. And what is most impressive, this urgency doesn't just originate from the body, it originates from the soul. It's as if something within her recognizes that this man carries a masculine energy capable of containing it without suffocating it. Machiavelli would say that the end justifies the means. But here, the means is precisely the firm calm he demonstrates. She doesn't want to be used. She wants to be understood. She doesn't want to be admired. She wants to be felt. It is at this stage that her gaze changes. It becomes direct, without disguises, without masks. And this gaze says everything that words still dare not confess. Hunger becomes emotional before it becomes physical. It seeks security, not in a childish sense, but in a spiritual sense. Security to lose control without losing dignity. It wants the feeling of surrendering to someone who doesn't lose themselves when they let go. Therefore, it observes whether he acts with decisions based on real human nature, or whether he lets himself be carried away by fragile impulses. The appearance of virtue here is not about morality, it's about stability. And when it perceives that he maintains the calculated use of inner strength, that his posture doesn't change with increasing intensity, something in it relaxes and accelerates at the same time. If you wanted to apply this to real life, remember, hunger arises when it sees that you control yourself, not the situation. This kind of power cannot be bought. It must be proven. And then something happens that few men realize. She wants to get lost, but only in the hands of someone who doesn't get lost. That's the key. That's the fine line between healthy desire and deep surrender. The lucid man possesses constant adaptability, like someone who has his own loyal armies guarding his identity. He doesn't bow to her fire, he contains it. He doesn't extinguish it, he directs it, and this ability to remain whole causes her hunger to transform into a need to possess, to experience, to connect on a more visceral level. It is here that desire changes frequency and enters a dangerous and fascinating territory at the same time. Because when hunger becomes emotional dependence, the first breath of obsession is born. Obsession is born when the fire, once controlled, begins to consume the very air. It's no longer about the man, it's about the sensation he provokes. She begins to seek this sensation as one seeks an emotional refuge, even knowing that it unbalances her. Here, fantasy ceases to be imagined and becomes necessary. It's as if his presence were a rare resource, and any crumb of attention is enough to reignite the entire cycle. She seeks signs, messages, answers. She seeks his energy even in the smallest spaces of the day. Machiavelli would say that politics guided by reality requires recognizing when an external force dominates the internal one. And at this stage, she fights against it. Desire ceases to be a choice and becomes an impulse. And within her, reason tries to shout, but instinct envelops her with greater force. The most curious thing, she no longer desires the man, she desires the symbol. He ceases to be a person and becomes an emotional portal, a mirror of everything she has projected, imagined, and idealized. That's why the energetic dependence intensifies. She doesn't chase after him, she chases after the version of herself that only exists when he's around. An incessant, almost ritualistic search. Sometimes she checks her phone, sometimes she revisits old conversations, sometimes she gets lost in memories that were never real. A war between reason and instinct, as if two political forces were fighting within her, one trying to maintain an appearance of virtue, the other wanting to surrender completely. And the most fascinating thing, the more he maintains his firm stance, calculated use of force, decisions based on real human nature, the more she becomes destabilized. Because she sees in him what she cannot see in herself, center. And it is precisely because he understands this mechanism that the wise man retreats. Not out of cruelty, not for cheap games, but out of self-control. He knows that if he feeds the obsession, he destroys what could be true desire. So he practices what Machiavelli would call virtù and fortuna, timing, prudence, and self-control. He watches the fire burn out without becoming emotionally involved, without becoming fuel. Because obsession is not love, it is love without direction. And all love without direction needs to die symbolically to be reborn with clarity. By retreating, he allows her to recover her own center, rediscover reason, and reorganize her instincts. And this silent and strategic gesture does not close the story. It only creates space so that the ancestral force of desire can be understood in the conclusion. Female desire has always been an ancestral force, much deeper than the surface suggests. It begins with an almost timid glance, grows in calculated silences, and transforms into an abyss when it finds a man capable of remaining whole while everything around her crumbles. Machiavelli would say that the end justifies the means, and here, the end is the female search for emotional stability, while the means is the path she travels until she trusts. It's not an equation, it's energy. An energy that responds not to male impulse, but to presence. She doesn't desire someone who tries to dominate her body. She desires someone who dominates himself, the lucid man who makes decisions based on real human nature, understands that power lies not in controlling the other, but in controlling one's own axis. When he remains firm, she feels she can fall, without losing herself. Desire, when observed with maturity, reveals something few men realize. It's not about seduction, but about instinctive confidence. That's why she observes posture, voice, timing, absence, rhythm, everything that demonstrates a calculated use of force. And when she finds a man who acts with constant adaptability, who doesn't try to show off virtue and fortune but embodies them naturally, she relaxes. Female desire is a wave, sometimes gentle, sometimes devastating. The average man tries to surf the wave unprepared and ends up swallowed. The wise man learns to stand, accept the impact, feel the force, but not break. And it is precisely this silent solidity that transforms desire into emotional depth. Because in the end, she doesn't want someone to conquer her. She wants someone to stay. Mastery, therefore, is not control over another. It is self-possession. It is maintaining one's own loyal armies, guarding one's emotional identity, even when intensity tries to tear it away. It is avoiding being hated, not out of fear, but out of emotional intelligence. It is appearing as a virtue, not as a neediness. And when a man understands this, he doesn't make a woman desire him. He becomes desirable. Female desire is an ancient dance, guided more by instinct than logic, more by silence than words. And those who learn to listen to it discover that true power lies not in seduction, but in presence. A firm, calm, strategic, and profoundly human presence. And it is precisely this kind of presence that opens the perfect space for the next topic, where you will understand, in an even more surgical way, the psychological triggers that activate all this effortlessly. Ultimately, none of this matters if you listen and don't apply it. Most men consume this type of content as entertainment, but continue living exactly the same way, predictable, insecure, and bland. But you've already realized the game is psychological, not physical. It's internal, not external. Small adjustments in your presence, your behavior, and your energy completely change how any woman reacts to you. But this requires courage to break out of autopilot. Do you have it? So look at yourself now. What triggers were you already activating without realizing it? What triggers were you sabotaging yourself because of insecurity? And which one will you apply first today? If you do nothing about it, nothing changes. If you do just 10%, your social, emotional, and even spiritual life begins to transform. The decision is yours, and if you want to continue learning exactly the kind of knowledge that nobody teaches, real psychology, proven strategies, and insights that change your self-perception, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. Here you learn how to become a more conscious, stronger, and emotionally unshakable man. The next video might be exactly what you need to make the switch flip.